The Iron Heart: How to Stay Kind in a Cruel World. There is a certain kind of strength that the world no longer speaks of. It is not loud. It is not brutal. It does not demand to be seen. It is quiet, deliberate, and dangerously rare. It is the strength to remain kind, when cruelty would be easier. Most men confuse hardness with power. They think that to be unfeeling is to be free, that to be detached is to be strong. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that to master oneself is not to become cold, it is to remain warm in a freezing world, to hold the flame steady when the wind screams to put it out. They called this inner flame virtue. And virtue, for the Stoic, was the only thing a man could truly control. Everything else, fortune, fame, the opinions of others, were dust on the wind. But his character, that was the fortress no one could storm. Once there was a man who believed he was strong. He had endured hardship, poverty, betrayal, loss. He had learned to keep his face still and his heart sealed. To the world, he looked unbreakable. But beneath the armor, something fragile was dying: his capacity for compassion. He had mistaken pain for proof. He believed that because he suffered and survived, he was wise. But the Stoics would say, survival is not wisdom. Wisdom is knowing how to survive without becoming the very thing that once hurt you. There was a day, quiet, unremarkable, when this man met a beggar on the street. The man looked away, as he always did. He told himself, I owe nothing to the weak. The world has no mercy, why should I? But as he walked on, a strange thought pierced through his practiced indifference. Once, I was the one asking for mercy. He turned back. The beggar was gone, and in that small moment, something shattered within him, not from guilt, but from realization. He saw himself clearly for the first time. A man so armored against pain that he had become immune to empathy. He had survived the world, but lost the best part of himself in the process. Kindness is not softness. It is restraint. It is the ability to destroy and choosing not to. The Stoics spoke often of temperance, the discipline of holding one's power in check. To act not from impulse, but from principle. To respond, not react. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. To stay kind in a cruel world is not weakness. It is rebellion. It is the most defiant act of self-mastery a man can perform. Because cruelty is easy, it is instinctual, but kindness requires control. The man began to test himself in small ways. When insulted, he would pause. When betrayed, he would breathe. When tempted to hate, he would remember. They, too, are fighting battles unseen. Slowly, his armor began to change. It was no longer built of bitterness and pride, but of patience and understanding. He learned to fight without malice, to speak without venom, to lead without arrogance. And though the world called him gentle, he had never been stronger. There comes a point in every man's life when he must decide. Will I let the world harden me, or will I refine myself despite it? Most choose hardness. It's easier. It costs less in the short term. But the cost of cruelty is the soul itself. For every act of cruelty, a man gives away a piece of his peace. And for every act of kindness, he strengthens his spirit, not because the world deserves it, but because he does. The Stoics knew that virtue was not for others. It was for oneself. To act with integrity was to maintain harmony within the self. And harmony, to them, was freedom. Seneca once wrote, "He who is cruel to others becomes cruel to himself." This is the truth most men never learn. They believe their cruelty protects them, when, in fact, it imprisons them. Each time you respond with hate, you become chained to what you despise. Each time you choose mercy, you rise above it. Kindness, then, is not moral decoration. It is liberation. It frees you from the chaos of the world by proving that nothing outside can dictate your nature. The man, now older, stood by his window one evening as rain fell against the glass. He thought of his youth, of how he used to see the world as a battlefield. Now, he saw it as a mirror. Each act of cruelty, each act of grace, both reflected the same thing, himself. He realized that life was not about winning or losing, conquering or surrendering. It was about becoming the kind of man whose peace could not be stolen, whose kindness could not be corrupted, whose heart, though forged in fire, remained human. An iron heart is not cold. It is tempered. It feels deeply but does not break easily. It loves fiercely but without attachment. It gives freely but expects nothing in return. That is the art of the Stoic. To live among wolves, and still refuse to howl. Remember this: the world will test you. It will humiliate you, deceive you, provoke you. It will dare you to descend to its level, to trade dignity for dominance, empathy for ego. But the man who has mastered himself knows. Every insult is a test of patience. Every loss, a test of humility. Every betrayal, a test of forgiveness. And in each test, he chooses the same response: calm. Because calm is his weapon, and kindness, his armor. True power is not the ability to control others. It is the ability to control yourself when everything else is out of control. The Stoics walked through fire without burning because they understood this simple truth. No one can harm a good man, not truly. For his virtue is beyond the reach of the world. And so, the man who once wore armor made of anger now wore a quieter kind. One made of discipline, mercy, and unshakable peace. He no longer sought to conquer. He sought to contribute. He no longer fought the world. He mastered the self. He had become what the Stoics called a man in harmony with reason. A man whose heart, though made of iron, still beat with compassion. In the end, strength and kindness are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin, forged in the same fire. The world may never understand that, but you must, because the man who can remain kind, when all else turns cruel, is the rarest kind of warrior, and in a time of chaos, that is the only kind worth becoming.